Welcome back. We're at episode 4 now, and I'd like to preface this video with, well, a disclaimer. This is all to do with classroom environments, but I've decided not to name the presentation just that. Instead, reflecting our demands for excellence. Now, I'll touch on exactly what I mean by that as the video continues, but I think it's far more appropriate than just naming this clip, this little video, the classroom. You'll see why. Demands and expectations, the things that we lay out to our students for each lesson, for each trimester, or even activity. And we need to consider in designing a classroom, what does a classroom tell your students? Because of course, we can explain ourselves to our class if there's something they don't understand or struggle to comprehend. We are here to explain it. A room will not do that. Instead, it will justify a lack of interest and investment because you're responsible for building a productive, a warm working environment for your students. Now, consider, we are more than teachers, more than educators. We do exist contrary to student perception outside of our classrooms. And so when I was designing my classroom, I considered, who am I? What are my interests? Either musical, sports-based, any kind of hobby, something that made me the kind of teacher that I am today. So considering your display as more than just mathematical equations, scientific concepts, or even English themes. The second one, that you value their work and you understand their academic and emotional state. Now, it's not too uncommon for a teacher to say that they value their students' work and they want to celebrate their achievements, thus inject creativity and interest, true interest, into certain tasks or projects. And there's no better way to back up your statement than to display it on the wall. Now, if you demand excellence and then you display and celebrate the kind of work that you claim to expect, then you're sticking to your word. You can now be trusted, and students may want to perform to the same level again or be a part of the next cohort that replaced the work from last year. Now, the third one, you may be a little shocked by the wording of it, but yes, you want your students to know this is a clean, hygienic, and tidy space without you here. If you students, young learners, were not in this room, it would look fantastic. And while you are here, it is in all of our interests to maintain that. So you hold them to standards from the first day. And just as the bullet point says, consider the broken windows hypothesis. If something is already damaged or defaced, there's nothing for students to aspire to. If your classroom is full of graffiti and bare walls, a product of disinterest or lack of investment, then there's no real reason for them to take your words as verbatim, and we have to be quite honest. And I've used a couple of images here. I've arranged it as a seminar, open discussion, eyes either behind me onto the paper 2 guide, or even a breakdown of all IB assessments that my students are likely to face. I have flags on my desk. I have a couple of trophies. I have Paddington Bear. These are not reflected in the English curriculum. Instead, it's a part of me. Students are interested in their teachers to a certain extent, and you can reveal as much or as little as you like, but open yourself up. You can see from these photographs, my desk is not next to the whiteboard, and this is because I'm conscious of drawing a divide between myself and students. They're always going to approach, and you can deal with that however you like. However, cutting yourself off and using it as a barrier rather than a table for productivity will be observed, and it will be absorbed by your class. Now, the next one, really drilling into the title of this presentation and more images, you can see bottom right that I actually brought in a mirror. And this is to overcome the problem of not being able to look into the corridor from where I'm currently sat. So by positioning a mirror, I can now sit comfortably here and watch what is taking place in the corridor. Of course, I can always hear it and I'm closer to it, but I can't always see it. So ask yourself as well, if you were to visit a friend's house, dirty socks on the floor, no display, smelly sofas, let's say cutlery, dirty cutlery left out, what would you think of them if they'd invited you over? How about dirty clothes? Somebody comes in with muddy clothes to work. What about the way they eat or their general demeanor? Now, if we're supposed to be ascribing standards or the IB learner profile to our students and expect them to demonstrate kinds of behaviors that are supposed to be observable in an IB learner, open-mindedness, creativity, knowledgeable. I'm not going to go through all 10, but I hope you're starting to see where my creativity for this classroom comes from. If I'm going to demand a risk-taking attitude, I'm going to display certain things across my room, maybe experiment with QR codes. Did it work? No, I won't do it again. And telling your students, you've put this on the wall, let's see how this goes. And finally, in red, fitting in line with existing preconceptions. Just because you're a maths teacher doesn't mean you have to display purely mathematical content. Or as a science teacher, you don't need references to the periodic table across your classroom, or as an English teacher, the definition of a verb, because I know as an English teacher, I wouldn't want to look at that working within my own space. It's not interesting. Now you can also do yourself a favor, hide work behind the guise of decoration. So if you're maybe fitting into a new framework, put concepts or key quotes, things that you want your students to look at that you also need to memorize in order to help your students with whatever assessment they may sit. So it serves a dual purpose in that respect. Now, in finality, I'm going to focus in again on the board that you can see in both images, Big Ben. I'm trying to prove to you now that the excellence that I demand from students in their senior years is not only an expectation, but it fits in line with my own behaviors. If I'm investing in their curriculum, so much so that I can provide a full-blown analysis of the text on the board, you're showing your students that you understand the content you're teaching them and you enjoyed it. If your students know that you dread a subject or you actively avoid it or bear no reference to it, how are they supposed to enjoy it? And you don't need to tell them this, it's reflected in your classroom. So don't be fooled when you see a beautiful classroom that it's merely decorative. See it as a reflection of you. What do you bring to school? What do you want parents to think about IB and your teaching capabilities based upon the style or decorations in your room? Again, when they enter your room, what kind of person are you? How should they talk to you? Again, students will learn this from you, from your behaviors, but you can do an awful lot to trigger subconscious behaviors within your class just from the displays on the wall. Mine is a work in progress, but I hope to continue on the same trajectory as I started with. That's all for now. See you in episode 5.